Thanks for tuning in to this special report of the Epoch News. And today on the show we talk about the President's landmark speech in Miami on February 18, when he completely exposes the ideology of socialism and communism. This story is written by Epoch Times writer Bowen Shao and Ivan Penchikov. The President gave a powerful speech addressing the nation on Venezuela's situation, and he had a very important message to share with the people of the world.
The twilight hour of socialism has arrived in our hemisphere and, frankly, in many, many places around the world. The days of socialism and communism are numbered not only in Venezuela, but in Nicaragua and in Cuba as well.
The President says to support a peaceful regime change in Venezuela, the United States has paved the way towards getting rid of socialism and communism in South America and is creating the first fully democratic Western Hemisphere in history. Now, Trump, who's a critic of socialism and communism, told the Venezuelan community in Florida that recent changes in South and Central America suggest that the path toward democracy on the two continents is irreversible. The President pledged the support of the United States to Venezuelans who are standing for freedom and democracy.
We're here to proclaim a new day is coming in Latin America. It's coming. In Venezuela and across the Western Hemisphere, socialism is dying, and liberty, prosperity, and democracy are being reborn.
The President reiterated his support for Venezuela's interim President Juan Guaidó. Trump was the first world leader to recognise Guaidó as the legitimate leader of the South American nation. Guaidó was made interim president shortly after the Venezuelan National Assembly declared socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro as illegitimate. Trump told the crowd that Venezuela should cease to be a puppet state of the communist regime in Cuba. Now, nearly 92,700 Cuban communist proxies work in Venezuela's government, according to a congressional testimony by a retired Venezuelan military official. Senior US administration officials have said that Venezuela is being propped up by the communists in Cuba. White House Director of Strategic Communications Mercedes Schlapp told Fox News on February 18 that Cuba has sent more than 20,000 security force personnel to Venezuela. The President said, "Maduro is not a Venezuelan patriot. He is a Cuban puppet. That's what he is." He also said, "For decades, the socialist dictatorships of Cuba and Venezuela have propped each other up in a very corrupt bargain. Venezuela gave Cuba oil. In return, Cuba gave Venezuela a police state run directly from Havana. But this is a much different day, and those days are over," Trump told the crowd. Successful and peaceful regime change in Venezuela would spark change and promote democracy in Cuba and Nicaragua. In 2018, the Trump administration dubbed Venezuela, Cuba and Nicaragua the Troika of Tyranny. In November 2018, National Security Advisor John Bolton said the socialist dictatorships in the three nations are the genesis of a sordid cradle of communism in the Western Hemisphere. During his presidential campaign, Trump did not focus on the threat of socialism and communism to the United States and the world. But since taking office, the President has made the fight against socialism and communism a key part of his agenda. At this year's State of the Union speech, he said that America will never become a socialist country. Almost 90% of Venezuela's population live below the poverty line, and more than half of families are unable to meet their basic food needs, according to Mercy Corps, a humanitarian group. The UN estimates that by the end of 2019, 5.3 million refugees and migrants will have fled the socialist regime in Venezuela.
Socialism promises prosperity, but it delivers poverty. Socialism promises unity, but it delivers hatred and it delivers division. Socialism promises a better future, but it always returns to the darkest chapters of the past. That never fails. It always happens.
Guaido's ascendance triggered a global referendum on socialism. Maduro received recognition from current and former communist nations like China, North Korea, Cuba and Russia. Meanwhile, more than 50 free world nations, including the United States, Germany and Australia, backed Guaidó. The president also had a message to the military, saying the United States is aware of the whereabouts of the wealth hidden abroad by military officials and their families. Venezuelan military officials have a choice, he said: work toward democracy for the future of their families or stand to lose their wealth. Trump said, warning Maduro's backers,
"If you choose this path, you will find no safe harbor, no easy exit, and no way out. You will lose everything."
Two high-ranking officials have already defected from Maduro's regime. Guaidó, in the meantime, has promised amnesty for military forces who defect. Venezuelan military officials have continued to remain loyal to Maduro, largely because of the wealth they have gained from corruption, drug trafficking and revenues from the petroleum trade. A US admiral said at a recent Senate Armed Service Committee that Venezuela has about 2,000 generals. The president said,
"So today I ask every member of the Maduro regime, end this nightmare of poverty, hunger, and death for your people. Let your people go. Set your country free."
Now let's take a look at the humanitarian aid. Maduro has continued to refuse to allow humanitarian aid into Venezuela, which has been piling up in the Colombian border city of Cucuta. On February 16, 3 US military cargo planes landed in Cucuta, carrying 180 tonnes of humanitarian aid. It was the second such shipment from the United States. He would rather see his people starve than give them aid, Trump said. The heavily guarded warehouse in Cucuta is one of the 3 points from where an attempt will be made on February 23 to deliver the aid into Venezuela. Guaidó hopes that will drive a wedge between Maduro and military forces who continue to support him, despite popular discontent. The United States has pledged $20 million to alleviate the suffering in Venezuela. The other two locations are Roraima in northern Brazil and the Dutch Caribbean island of Curaçao. When the day comes, military figures will face the choice of disobeying Maduro's orders and letting the much-needed supplies into the country, or remain loyal to him and block the aid's entry, potentially sparking a confrontation with crowds desperate for food and medicine. Maduro claims the decline of his country is a result of US-imposed sanctions and that Venezuelans are not beggars. His regime placed an oil tanker and shipping crates on February 6 to barricade a bridge that was intended to be used to deliver the aid, sparking an international standoff about Venezuela at the border. And that's all for today's special report. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments below, and make sure to click the like and subscribe button. Thanks for joining us. I'm Angela Anderson.